Okay. I'll just repeat again. In last lecture, we have seen that uh, if M is a proper closed linear subspace of a Hilbert space H, and if D is a distance between the vector and the set M, is it clear now? Rohini? Is the voice clear
Yes,
now?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Now just recall, if M is a closed linear subspace of a Hilbert space H and X be any vector not in M, then D is a distance from X to M, then prove that there exists a unique vector Y naught in M such that norm of X minus Y naught is equal to D. This is what we have proved in the last lecture. Now in today's lecture, we are going to prove a next theorem which states that if M be a proper closed linear subspace of a Hilbert space H, then prove that there exists a non-zero vector Z0 in H such that Z0 is orthogonal to M. Okay, to prove this, let us have a look to the sketch. If H is a Hilbert space, M is proper closed subspace of H, then our aim is to show that there exists a non-zero vector Z0 in H which is orthogonal to M. To prove this, actually our aim is to prove that Z0 is orthogonal to Y for every Y in M, that is inner product of Z0 with Y is equal to 0 for all Y in M. For this we want to show that we will start with knowing M is a proper closed subspace, there exists a vector X in H and there exists a vector X in H which is not in M. This element is going to exist because M is proper closed subspace, right? Then let me make use of a definition of D. D is defined to be a distance between a point X and a set M, which is defined as inferior norm of X minus Y for all Y in M. As X is not in M, we can easily say that D is greater than 0. X is outside M and we are counting the distance between X and the vectors Y in M. Therefore, surely D is greater than 0. Now, by previous theorem, we will say that there exists a unique vector. There exists a unique vector Y naught in M such that norm of X minus Y naught is equal to D. That is, somewhere here there exists a vector say Y naught where this distance norm X and Y naught is exactly equal to D. Okay, this is what by the previous theorem itself. Therefore, here what we will do, we will select this vector to be Z0. We select Z0 is equal to X minus Y0. X minus Y0, right? But our aim is to check this vector is non-zero or not. Therefore, what I will do, I will check the norm value. What is the norm value of Z0? Norm value of Z0 is norm of X minus Y0, which we know that it is D and D is always greater than 0. Therefore, here one can say that this Z0 is a non-zero vector. This Z0 is a non-zero vector, right? Therefore, here we have obtained Z0. Z0 we have written as X minus Y0. X is in H, Y0 is in M, means it is in H. Thus, the linear combination of X and Y0 must be in H itself, and which we are calling as some Z0. Therefore, half part we have covered. We have found a non-zero vector Z0 in H. What remains to do to show that Z0 is orthogonal to M? As I told you, we want to show that Z0 is orthogonal to Y. Here I will write to prove that. To prove that Z0 is orthogonal to Y for all Y in M. Therefore, we will call this as step number 2. In first step, we have found a non-zero vector. In the second step, we will prove that the vector is orthogonal to M. Okay. Therefore, here I will write again, that is to prove that inner product Z0 with Y is equal to 0 for all Y in M. Okay. Now, here we will try to make some adjustment in order to make this. Just wait. Okay, now yes, मी पाठवते. Okay, now in order to prove that z0 is orthogonal to y, we will start with any scalar alpha. For any scalar alpha, let us consider a vector z0 minus alpha y. Okay, see, let us just try to understand the locations. X is here, y0 is here, z0 is here, and y we are calling an arbitrary vector in M. And now here we are writing z0 minus alpha y. What will be z0 minus alpha y? X minus y0. z0 is x minus y0 minus alpha y. Okay, which one can write as x minus y0 plus alpha y, right? But where is the location of y0 and y? The location of y0 and y is in M. Therefore, what about this linear combination y0 plus alpha y? Y0 plus alpha y will be somewhere a vector in M itself, right? We will write here as y0 plus alpha y. Okay, this is a vector in M. And what about x minus a vector in M by definition of D? Okay, by definition of D, this is greater or equal by D, na? Okay, here I'll write as M is a subspace, as M is a subspace of H for y and y0 in M. May I write y0 plus alpha y is in M. Therefore, this is a vector in H, this is a vector in M. And now if we find the distance between the two vectors, what is the value? Norm of x minus y0 plus alpha y. That is a distance between a vector x and an arbitrary vector in M, or a particular vector y0 plus alpha y. What about the distance? Surely the distance is greater or equal to D. Why we are writing equal to D? Because for alpha equal to 0, this vector coincides with y0. If it coincides with y0, the distance is exactly D. If it doesn't, then it is greater than D. Therefore, we will write norm of x, distance between these two vectors is greater equal by D, and we know D is nothing but norm of z0. Correct now? Because we have written norm of z0 is equal to D here. Okay? Therefore, here we have obtained one statement, norm of x minus y0 plus alpha y is greater equal by norm of z0. But this vector is actually z0 minus alpha y. Right now, this vector is z0 minus alpha y. Okay? Therefore, norm of z0 minus alpha y is a greater equal by norm of z0. Now, in order to find out the relation in terms of inner product, we have to use the relation between norm and inner product. And what is the relation we know? Norm square x is inner product xx. Therefore, in order to establish this in terms of inner product, we will take square on both the sides. Therefore, squaring on both the sides, we will get z0 minus alpha y square is greater equal by norm of z0 square. Okay, let us make use of the relation. What this is then? Norm square of z minus alpha y is inner product of z0 minus alpha y with z0 minus alpha y. This term will take on the left. This is inner product z0 with z0, and the whole term is greater equal by 0. Now we will use linearity property. Students, once again you please tell me, is the voice clear? Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Clear na?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Now we will use linearity in first variable and conjugate linearity in second variable. Okay. Therefore, let us use this linearity in first variable first, right? Therefore, we can separate these inner product as z0 with z0 minus alpha y, right? Minus alpha times inner product y with z naught minus alpha y. This term we are keeping as it is. Inner product z naught with z naught greater equal by 0. Now we will use conjugate linearity in second variable for both these inner products simultaneously. Therefore here it is z naught, inner product z naught with z naught minus alpha. Yes, how can I take this scalar out? With conjugate, therefore I will write alpha bar, therefore inner product z naught with y. Next alpha will take out, we will write in a bracket inner product of y with z naught. This scalar is also taken out with bar minus alpha bar inner product y with y minus inner product z naught with z naught is greater equal by 0. Okay, now you can observe very easily first term and last term cancels one another. Therefore we remain with minus alpha bar inner product z naught with y. We will multiply by minus alpha. This is minus alpha inner product y with z naught minus minus plus. This is plus alpha bar inner product y with y, which is greater equal by 0. Let me call it as statement number 1. Now somehow we have involved with the inner product z naught with y, and aim is to show that this is equal to 0. Now in order to show this, what we will do, we will make a particular selection of the scalar alpha used. What we have written initially for all scalars alpha, now for all real and complex numbers. Now we will make the selection for alpha. We will select, or let us take alpha is equal to beta into inner product z naught with y. Inner product is a scalar quantity, where here we will keep the restriction that beta is a real number. Beta is the real number, a specific value we are choosing. You might get a reason behind why we have selected this, because here if I observe this is alpha bar, this will, if I put the value here, it will be inner product z naught with y bar into inner product z naught with y. Means the term is the quantity is of the type z into z bar, and we know z into z bar is mod z square, right? And here it is inner product y with z naught, which is actually z naught y bar. Therefore it will be in the simplified form with the selection of this scalar, right? Therefore I will just put the scalar here above. What is the alpha bar value? Okay, what is the conjugate value? There is no effect on beta because beta is real number, therefore I will keep it as it is, and conjugate for the scalar, right? Therefore what we will do, we will put the value in the above equation. Put this value in 1. Put this value in 1. Alpha bar. What is alpha bar? This is minus beta into inner product z naught with y bar into inner product z naught with y as it is. Next, this is beta inner product z naught with y. This term we will write in a conjugate form, inner product z naught with y conjugate plus alpha is beta inner product z naught with y. Alpha bar is beta inner product z naught with y bar. Okay, into inner product y with y, and which is greater equal by 0. Right? Now look at this quantity very carefully, what we have obtained. What is the value in the first? This minus beta, a scalar as it is. Okay. This term is of the type z bar into z, therefore this is mod z square. Therefore shall I write this is mod inner product z naught with y squared. Okay. Similarly beta, here also the same term, therefore this is modulus square inner product z naught with y square. Okay. What about the last term? Last term is we have two scalars beta and beta, which will be beta square. Again the same logic, modulus inner product z naught with y square into norm of y square, which is greater equal by 0. This is what our simplified form is. Now what we will do, we will take a term beta modulus square common. Beta modulus square inner product z naught y common. Just check out how many terms we left with. Here in the last we left with 1 beta and norm square y. This term we have taken common. Here it remains with minus 1 and minus 1, which is minus 2. And whole thing is greater or equal by 0. Let me call it as statement number 2. Let me call it as statement number 2. Now what we have said that this relation is true for any value real beta. This relation is true for any real value of beta, right now, because this is a real number. Any real value of beta, and our aim is to show that this z naught with y is 0. Therefore let us assume on the contrary that this is not 0. Okay, therefore let us assume inner product z naught with y is not equal to 0. Okay, if it is not equals to 0, what will happen? We can shift the term on the right, which will be 0. This beta is also 0. Therefore together what we will obtain? Beta norm square y minus 2 is greater or equal by 0, which in turn gives us beta norm y square minus 2 is greater or equal by 2. Okay, this should be actually, but one can select beta real number such that, therefore let choosing, I'll write choosing beta to be positive and such that, what such that? Beta into norm square y is less than 2. What will happen if I select, that is I want to select beta less than 2 upon norm square y. 2 upon norm square y provided y is not equals to 0. Right now? Otherwise we can write, it's better to write beta norm square y is less than 2. For these values of beta which are less than 2 upon norm square y, we will get the inequality reversed. Correct now? What will be an inequality then? Beta norm square y minus 2 is less than 0. Therefore for these many values of beta which are less than 2 upon norm square y, the above equation inequality number 2 is not going to satisfy, which is the contradiction to the statement that it is true for any value of beta. Contradiction arises due to this wrong assumption, right? Therefore thus, which is the contradiction to equation number 2, hence inner product z naught with y is equal to 0 for all y in M. Hence we have proved that z naught is orthogonal to M. Hence the proof. Right? If you have any difficulty up to this, you can ask me. Right? What we have done initially, theorem is showing the existence of a non-zero vector z naught which is orthogonal to the proper closed linear subspace. This we have proved. For that purpose we have just made use of the definition D. We have, by previous theorem we have selected the vector which is non-zero, and with this calculations he has shown that inner product z naught with y is 0, that is z naught is orthogonal to y. Yes, any difficulty till this from student side?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, ma'am.
If not, let us go to a next theorem. Actually I have given theorem numbers in my notebook, therefore I will just continue. This is actually the theorem which we have seen just now is number 10, and now which we are going to see is number 11, so that it will be easier for us to remember. Right? Therefore we will just write theorem number 11. Next theorem I will write. Next theorem says that let M be proper, M be linear subspace, not proper, M be linear subspace of a Hilbert space H, then prove that. What to prove? M is closed if and only if M equal to M double perp. What is M perp? M perp is orthogonal complement of M, means collecting those vectors in a Hilbert space H which are orthogonal to M. Here I'll write Hilbert space H. Okay. Now we want to show that M is closed if and only if M is equal to M double perp. Proving part 1 of this statement is very easy because we have done it already. You might have remembered the theorem we have proved. If S be any subspace of a Hilbert space H, we have shown that S perp is closed subspace. S perp, that is S orthogonal complement, is closed. According to that theorem, here M double perp is orthogonal complement of M perp, hence it is closed. Okay, therefore let us assume M equal to M double perp. Okay, what to prove? M is closed. We want to prove that M is closed. Okay, now what we have? We have M is equal to M double perp. M double perp is actually M perp orthogonal complement of M perp, where M is subspace of H. M is subspace of H. Okay, now we have proved already in the theorem. I'll just recall the theorem to you. See what is the theorem we have seen. For if S is a non-empty subset of a Hilbert space H, then we have proved that. Shall I write the statement here so that it will be easier for you? Theorem we have proved is, if S is non-empty subset subspace of a Hilbert space H, then S perp is closed linear subspace of H and hence Hilbert space. Right? If you are remembering this statement, the theorem tells us that every orthogonal complement is closed linear subspace. Therefore, M double perp is orthogonal complement of M perp, hence it is closed. Therefore, one can say that M is closed. Okay. Here, thus, by this theorem, M is closed. Correct? First part is easy to prove. Now we will go for part 2. In part 2, what one has to do? The assumption is M is closed and we want to prove that M is equal to M double perp. Let us assume that M is closed subspace of H. And what we want to prove? To prove that M equal to M double perp. M equal to M double perp. If you are remembering the consequences we have seen under the section of orthogonal complement, we have proved in consequence number 5 that M is contained in M double perp. By consequence, spelling is wrong. By consequence number 5, what is that consequence we have written? S is contained in S double perp. Therefore, by this consequence, may I write M is contained in M double perp. Okay, but our aim is to prove actually M equal to M double perp. Therefore, we will assume that M is not equal to M double perp. Okay, that is M, the meaning will be M is proper closed subspace, right? Let us assume M is not equal to M double perp. Okay, and M is contained in m double perp. What is the meaning? M is proper closed subspace. Proper closed subspace of H. And just now we have seen theorem, na? If M is proper closed subspace of N not H of M double perp. Of M double perp. Okay, but M double perp itself is a Hilbert space according to this statement. Hence Hilbert space we have written. Therefore here we say that this M double perp is a Hilbert space. M double perp is a Hilbert space. M is proper closed subspace of a Hilbert space M double perp. Now by the theorem we have proved just now that there exists a non-zero vector. See, this is M double perp. Okay, this is M proper closed subspace. Just now we have shown that there exists a vector Z0 in the Hilbert space which is orthogonal to M. Therefore here I will write by previous theorem. By previous theorem, it is number 10 actually. Na? By previous theorem there exists a non-zero vector Z0 in which set now it is in M double perp, such that what, such that Z0 is orthogonal to M. Okay, see, whenever we are writing Z0 is orthogonal to M, may I say Z0 is a member of orthogonal complement. Z0 is a vector orthogonal to all the elements in M, hence it will be a member of orthogonal complement. See, now see the beauty. Z0 is in M double perp, Z0 is in M, therefore may I write Z0 is in the intersection M perp intersection M double perp, first, second, right? That Z0 is in the intersection. But again by consequence number 3, what we have seen, in the intersection of a set and its orthogonal complement, singleton 0 is the only common vector. S intersection S perp is singleton 0. This is what we have seen. Therefore by consequence number 3, here may I say M perp intersection M double perp is singleton 0. Therefore may I say Z0 is equal to 0. Z0 is equal to 0. But theorem says that this is a non-zero vector. But we have proved it as equal to 0, which is a contradiction, which is contradicting to the fact. Contradicting the fact. Contradicting the fact that Z0 is non-zero. Z0 is non-zero. Hence M contained in M double perp cannot be a proper inclusion. Cannot be proper. Hence M equal to M double perp. M equal to M double perp. Okay, so easy theorem it is actually. Any doubt about this one?
No, ma'am.
Good. Okay, therefore we have completed this theorem also. Therefore let us go to next theorem number 12. Theorem number 12. What theorem number 12 says that if M and N are closed linear subspaces of a Hilbert space H such that M is orthogonal to N, then prove that the linear subspace M plus N is closed. M plus N is closed. Okay, very easy theorem again. Theorem is M and N are closed linear subspaces of the Hilbert space such that M is orthogonal to N. The meaning of M is orthogonal to N, what we have seen? Every vector in M is orthogonal to every vector in N. We have seen the examples also, no? One straight line. One straight line will be one linear subspace. The another straight line which is orthogonal will be the another linear subspace of the given Hilbert spaces, right? Therefore, our aim is to show that if M is orthogonal to N, then linear subspace M plus N is closed. Okay. Before going to M plus N, we have seen a consequence that if M is orthogonal to N, then the intersection is 0. If M intersection N is 0, this M plus N, this sum will be a direct sum of the two subspaces. What do you know about the direct sum of the two subspaces? Can anyone tell me? What do you know about the direct sum of the two subspaces? Maiti kunala? What is direct sum?
The intersection is 0.
Intersection is?
अजून 0.
हां. अजून एक काय important property direct sum ची? Every vector in the given space is uniquely written as addition of one element from every set, ना? एक एलिमेंट या सेट मधला, दुसरा एलिमेंट त्या दुसऱ्या सेट मधला आणि त्याची युनिक ॲडिशन, राईट ना? Yes. Okay, therefore let us come to this point that M plus N we want to prove to be closed. Therefore I will write directly to prove that M plus N is closed. M plus N is closed. To prove that it is closed, what is our aim to show? It contains all its limit point. Okay, I will write here that is to prove that it contains all its limit points. Okay, therefore we will start with one limit point and we will show that that limit point is in the same set. Therefore let us start. Let Z be a limit point of M plus N, right? If Z be a limit point, what does it mean? It means that there exists a sequence Zn, right now, which converges to Z. Therefore shall I write here? This implies thus there exists a sequence Zn in M plus N such that, what such that? Zn converges to Z as n tends to infinity in H, right now, in H. Our aim is to show that this Z is in M plus N. Okay, now we will write that direct sum property. Now since M is orthogonal to N, therefore we will have the intersection is singleton 0. Okay, because singleton 0 is the only vector common. No other vector is common, because if any other non-zero vector is common to both, then according to M intersection N, X is orthogonal to X. This could not be possible for other than 0 vector. Therefore this is 0. Therefore here one can write M plus N is direct sum of two subspaces M and N, right? Now we have covered up to the direct sum. Now once I know that this is the direct sum, then one can say Zn can be written as, can be uniquely written rather. Zn can be uniquely written as. How can I write Zn? Zn is equal to xn plus yn, where xn is in m and yn is in n. Correct? Okay. Now we will consider two different points of the sequence. Okay. We will try to prove that the sequence is Cauchy. Once I show that it is Cauchy, we will get the converging points. Once we get the converging points, we can say that the addition of those converging points will be the limit point. Okay, let us try. Okay, what I am going to do now is considering 2 points. Okay, because the aim is to show that Zn is Cauchy in H. Zn is Cauchy in H. Okay, consider 2 points. Consider 2 points. Which 2 points I am going to consider is Zm, say xm plus ym, and Zn written above xn plus yn. Okay. What about xn and xm? Xn and xm are in m, ym and yn are in n. Okay, fine. Now we have Zm minus Zn. What it is? Xm plus ym minus xn plus yn. Now let me write this as xm minus xn, xm minus xn added with ym minus yn. Now what about this point? As xn xm is in n, this point is in m, this point is in n, but m is orthogonal to n. Therefore these 2 points are orthogonal. Therefore I will write directly xm minus xn. This vector is orthogonal to ym minus yn. And whenever we have 2 vectors orthogonal, we can use Pythagoras theorem very easily. Therefore by Pythagorean theorem, what Pythagorean theorem says? Norm square of x plus y is norm square x plus norm square y. Therefore this is norm square xm minus xn plus ym minus yn square is equal to norm square xm minus xn plus norm square ym minus yn. Right? Next, what we will do? Next step, this left hand side is no doubt Zm minus Zn, because we have already know about this. To the right, add as it is. Okay, let me call it as statement number 1. Okay, now Zn is convergent, means Zn is Cauchy. Now using this Zn Cauchy, we will try to prove that xn, yn are Cauchys, right? Thus, since sequence Zn is convergent, implies sequence Zn is Cauchy. Cauchy in H. If those two are Cauchy in H, if this is Cauchy in H, what does it mean? Norm of Zn minus Zn tends to 0 as n tends to infinity. Let me call it as statement number 2. Now look at 1 and 2. Left hand side of this equation number 1 tends to 0 as mn tends to infinity. What does this right hand side will be then? The right hand side will also tends to 0, but the right hand side is the addition of two non-negative terms tending to 0. Therefore it means that individually every term is tending to 0. Therefore shall I write directly? From 1 and 2 both the terms are tending to 0. Norm of xm minus xn tends to 0 and norm of ym minus yn tends to 0, both as m n tends to infinity. Therefore we can say very easily these two xn and yn are the Cauchy sequences. Are Cauchy sequences in m and n respectively. M and n are respectively, but it is given that both these are the closed subspaces, right now. See, look at the statement. In the statement itself, m and n are the closed linear subspaces. Hence, so here I'll write, since m and n are closed linear subspaces, of a Hilbert space H, therefore these are going to contain all its limit point, but here we have not talked about limit point. Okay, before that I should say, since these two are closed, these are complete spaces, right now. Therefore may I write m and n are complete. Now what is the meaning of complete space? Every Cauchy is convergent. Every Cauchy is convergent. Therefore here the sequence xn Cauchy in m will be now convergent, converges to some point in m itself. Similarly the sequence yn is convergent in n to some point in n, right? Therefore we will write, hence the Cauchy sequence xn in m converges to x in m, say, and Cauchy sequence yn in n converges to y in n, converges to y in n. Therefore what we have obtained, x is a point in m, limit point of the sequence xn, y is a point in n, limit point of the sequence yn. Now our aim is to show whatever is the addition z equal to x plus y will be the limit point. Okay, therefore we will show this. Consider what we know z is limit point of the sequence zn, that is limit n tends to infinity zn, right? Therefore limit n tends to infinity zn is xn plus yn. Separating the limits over the addition, we get it as limit n tends to infinity xn plus limit n tends to infinity yn, which is x plus y. Therefore z we have obtained x plus y, and no doubt this z will be a member of m plus n, because z is in x is in m and y is in n. Therefore we have shown that z is in m plus n, which we have started with z to be a limit point. Hence z is limit point of m plus n, which is contained in m plus n. Therefore hence one can write that m plus n is closed subspace. Closed subspace of H. Okay, understood what we have done? We have started with a limit point z. In order to show that m plus n is closed, we have started with a limit point z in m plus 1, then in m plus n, then there exists a sequence zn in m plus n, then later we have written that zn as xn plus yn, then zn is convergent is Cauchy. Using zm Cauchy we have tried to show x and yn both are Cauchy. If these two are Cauchy in m and n, that m and n are closed subspaces, hence complete. Therefore xn converges to a point x in m, yn converges to a point y in m, and hence we have shown that m plus n is closed subspace of H. Any doubt about the theorem? Okay. If not, we will go to a next, and I think it's last bit of orthogonal complement. The big theorem we will try to see is orthogonal decomposition theorem. Orthogonal decomposition theorem. This is very important theorem. I'll just write the statement and then we'll try to understand why it is called as orthogonal decomposition. Theorem says that if M is closed linear subspace, M is closed linear subspace of Hilbert space H, then prove that H is equal to M direct sum M perp. M direct sum M perp. What the theorem means, why the name is orthogonal decomposition. The word decomposition actually means as the factorization. No? We are going to divide, decompose, factorize, divide. But the word orthogonal says that the factorization is in such a way that the two subspaces are orthogonal to one another. Means, suppose if we have the Hilbert space H here, okay, and M be a closed subspace, then H is M added with M perp, direct sum M perp. That is, the direct sum only means that there is a singleton 0 is in common, otherwise no element is common. Means what we have done, we have divided the given space H into two parts, into two subspaces. Which two subspaces? M and its orthogonal complement. Okay, therefore the name is orthogonal decomposition. H हा हिल्बर्ट स्पेस दोन भागात आपण डिवाइड केला, एक M असेल, दुसरा M परप असेल, राईट. म्हणून त्याला आपण ऑर्थोगोनल फॅक्टरायझेशन, डिवायडेशन किंवा डिकम्पोजिशन असं म्हणूया. ओके, proof is very easy. Let us have a look to the proof. Okay, the proof is if M is a subspace, M perp is also closed subspace, that we have seen. Let me write this. Since M is closed linear subspace, this is also given to be closed linear subspace of H. Okay, may I say it implies M perp is also closed subspace of H. Means if this is closed, this is also closed. Both are the subspaces. And what is the another thing known to us? M intersection M perp is singleton 0. M intersection M perp is singleton 0. Reason is consequence number 3. Consequence number 3 we have proved now. S intersection S perp is singleton 0. Right. Now our aim is to show that H is equal to M direct sum M perp. What we will do then? We will try to assume that M plus M perp is some N. Right. I will write it. Hence, in order to prove H equal to M direct sum M perp, it is enough to prove that H equal to M sum M perp, because this sum becomes direct sum if this intersection is 0. Therefore we have already shown that the intersection is 0. Therefore it will be enough for me to prove that H is equal to M plus M perp. Okay, now since both M and M perp are closed subspaces, may I say addition is also closed subspace by previous theorem. Since M and M perp are closed subspaces of H, it implies the addition m plus m perp is also closed. Why? Just previous theorem na, by previous theorem. What previous theorem we have seen just now? M plus n is closed na. M plus n is closed. But what is the restriction here? M is orthogonal to n. Now, m is orthogonal to n. Here we are writing m and m perp. Therefore, these two are going to be orthogonal always to one another. Therefore, m plus m perp is also closed subspace of H. Now, what I will do? We will just take n equal to m plus m perp. Okay. Now, to show that. Now, what I want to show, H is equal to n. H is equal to n. Okay. Both m is contained in H, m perp is contained in H. Now our aim is to show that H is equal to n for n equal to m plus n perp. Okay. Now if I am writing n as m plus m perp, may I write m is contained in n and m perp is also contained in n. Right now, n we are writing m plus m perp, hence m is contained in n, m perp is also contained in n. Right now? Any doubt? Okay. Now by consequence number 4, we will find out the orthogonal complement on both the sides. By consequence 4, what is consequence 4 we have seen? If S1 is contained in S2, it implies S2 perp is contained in S1 perp. Correct na? Therefore, if M is contained in N, what about N perp? N perp is contained in M perp and this N perp is contained in M double perp. Therefore, we can say that N perp is contained in the intersection M perp and M double perp. But what is the intersection? Intersection is always singleton 0, no? Intersection is always singleton 0. Consequence, I forgot the number, S intersection S perp is singleton 0. A set and its orthogonal complement contains singleton 0 is in common. Therefore, n perp is contained in singleton 0. Therefore, we can write n perp is equal to singleton 0 because the reverse inclusion is always true. Singleton 0 is always contained in n perp because n perp is a subspace. Okay. Therefore, by consequence number 1 again, taking complement on taking orthogonal complement on both the sides. What is n double perp? N double perp is singleton 0 perp, which is a whole space. Let me call it as 1. Therefore, what we have obtained, n double perp is equal to H. N double perp is equal to H. Okay. But since n is equal to m plus m perp is closed subspace. We have written already, no? This is closed subspace. Therefore, by previous theorem, 11 is it is. Therefore, we have what we have shown just now, m equal to m double perp, na? Therefore, may I write n equal to n double perp. If n is closed, n equal to n double perp. Let me call it as statement number 2 from 1 and 2. What we have obtained? Yes, from 1 and 2. Once we are writing n double perp is H. Once we are writing n double perp is n. Hence, n is equal to H. From 1 and 2. N is equal to H. That is H is equal to n. H is equal to n. N we have assumed m plus m perp, and we know m intersection m perp is singleton 0. Singleton 0. Hence, one can write H is equal to direct sum of m and m perp. Thus, Hilbert space is written as a direct sum of the subspace and its orthogonal complement. Thus, we have seen that how the space H is being divided into two parts. First part is the closed subspace, second part is its orthogonal complement. That's why the name of the theorem is orthogonal decomposition, orthogonal factorization. Okay, any doubt till this?
No.
No? It's good.
No.
Okay, if you are not having any doubt, shall we stop for today's lecture? Okay, and we are planning a test at the month end of this month end. Okay, be ready for the test. Thank you for watching today's lecture.